Legal expert now, the great Jesse Weber, NewsNation's legal contributor, anchor at the Law and Crime Network here in studio. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
This guy's blowing up online, by the way, because, well...
There's a huge interest in this case.
Because you're great, but I know your podcast has been taken off because of this case. People are really into it. Because so let's start with Cudi and tell me what you thought came out of it, what the relevance of his testimony was today.
One thing to add, by the way, he also claims that Combs years later said, I apologize for all the things that I did. Not great. Let me tell you why he's such an important witness.
Yes.
If you talk to any legal analyst, they will say, I don't know if the prosecution's proving racketeering. I would disagree. I would say this witness is so important. Why? For racketeering, you have to prove that there's a criminal enterprise, right? There was a witness who testified earlier in the week. This was Sean Combs' kingdom. I was an assistant. It's all to serve him. In order to prove racketeering, the prosecution has to prove at least two underlying crimes. So you're talking about a pattern of criminal activity. Two of those are arson and kidnapping. Kid Cudi testified about his car being blown up. The jury could accept that's a form of arson, and if they think that Sean Combs admitted to it, that's arson. He also testified that Sean Combs may have kidnapped one of his own employees and brought him over to Kid Cudi's residence. That is kidnapping. That's a second charge for racketeering. And by the way, overall, talking about Combs doing or allegedly doing all these things, it goes to the idea that the jury needs to digest that this isn't just a case of domestic violence, or that Sean Combs is essentially a mafia leader. So when you heard testimony earlier this week about what was found in his home, when you hear about the force, when you hear about violence, when you hear about drugs and guns and threats and blackmails, it's easily digestible for the jury that he was operating a criminal enterprise.
So that's probably the best kind of articulated argument for the prosecution's case that I've heard. I've got a bunch of lawyers on, like, I think you know Randy Zellin. He was in.
I know Randy well.
Randy gets fired up. So he's in here earlier. His basic point was like, yeah, they proved the guy's a terrible guy, but they're not getting anywhere on the underlying crime or the charged crimes. And you said the underlying crimes for racketeering. He says they're not making advances. But you think that slowly but surely they are. So this week is over now, right? Because of the holiday. So recap the week and tell me what you think they accomplished.
I think there were two things that happened this week, and I don't necessarily disagree with Randy. I think the jury is probably very confused at this point. Racketeering is a very confusing charge. Sex trafficking is not the most easy to understand. Having said that, this week was about two things. One, corroborating the testimony of Cassandra Ventura. So when you had Cassandra Ventura testify last week that she was coerced into these sexual episodes, that she was physically abused, and you have Dawn Richard testifying, I saw her being abused. Kerry Morgan testifying, I saw her being abused. Her own mother saying, I had to wire money to Diddy because he was threatening to release these sex tapes of her. That all supports her credibility. But then you go into racketeering, right? And so you have the assistants who talk about our job.
That guy Kaplan was there today.
Kaplan, David James. We had to clean up the hotel rooms. We had to buy the supplies. Combs made us take lie detector tests. His security carried guns. He tried to go after Suge Knight. This was a big point, and I don't think it's getting enough attention. There was an allegation that Sean Combs would beat up Cassie in front of other people, including celebrities. Now, why is that a big deal? Besides the fact that, Usher's going to take the stand, I don't think it's going to happen. It's the idea is, why did Cassie not leave? Well, if you take it for a minute and say she's being beaten up in front of these celebrities and nobody does anything, nobody steps forward, do you blame her for not stepping away? What is she going to do? Nobody's jumping to her aid. She is 19 years old when she met Combs. There's a 17-year age difference. The power dynamics are so important. A forensic psychologist testified this week, Dr. Dawn Hughes, who testified in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, basically saying there are a lot of reasons why victims don't leave their abusers. There's financial dependency, trauma bonding, love bombing. So this is a complicated case. I will tell you, it sometimes takes a little bit of mental gymnastics to get to racketeering. It's going to take a while
to get there. And that's why it's going to last for a while.
This is all coming down to closing arguments in 6 weeks. They need to articulate to this jury how this is a federal crime, and I think there's evidence to support it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.